Thank you so much, Johnny, for agreeing to have this chat with me. I really appreciate it. And would you tell me a bit about yourself and your writing history, or where you are now as a writer? That would be really good to start off with.
I'm been a lifelong poet. I was kind of signed up to just be a performance poet, you know, write it down, but not really publish. And then I got to the point where I was like, I better have something for posterity. So, you know, I published a couple books of poetry and did I say my name? Oh, sorry. Anyways, I'm Johnny Evans, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with writing.
Okay. So you write poetry and you also write screenplays?
Yes, I have written a couple screenplays, and I've got one that I've probably done 2 or 3 edits on and have researched for about 10 years. I'm going to start shopping it, but I feel like I'm probably going to do 10 or 20 edits first. Wow. And I also have a novel that's really been set to the side. It's about 80 pages at this point, and I would love to finish that at some point, but it seems to always get pushed to the back a little bit. So,
so how did you get started writing then?
I had very creative parents. My mom was an artist, and I think she encouraged that. I remember writing little poems for her when I was a little kid, and then I really felt like my day or night I became a writer. I was in college, and I woke up in the middle of the night in my bunk bed and looked out my window, and outside my window was a cemetery. And above the cemetery was a full moon. This sounds really made up, but it's actually how it happened. And I pictured like this walkway of light to the moon. And then I just was compelled to write about it. So, and that was called The Road or something. And that was probably my significant moment of becoming a writer. So.
Did that feel like that was the moment when you thought to yourself you were going to be a writer, or? Sounded like it happened.
Yeah, it felt like I'd always kind of scribbled stuff down and liked to, you know, express myself differently. But that was definitely a signature moment where I was like, yeah, I think I've got to do this for the rest of my life. I don't know where it's going to take me. But something has happened inside.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really felt how profound that moment was, and the scene and everything that went with it.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like, it was so spiritual. Like, and I'm not exactly the most spiritual person, but that was a moment where something otherworldly happened to compel me to want to write. And wow. Yeah, I've stayed with it ever since. So.
Oh, lovely. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and if I can tell one story, and it's going to be emotional, and it'll be quick, but my second book is called Screaming Ravens, and I wrote it as a kind of a modern free verse epic poem. So it's really it's 60 some pages. It's like, sit down, dedicate an hour, read this whole thing, and be done with it. It's an amazing experience. It takes you many, many different places. And when my mom passed, we took her home from the hospital, got her home for her last few breaths, and in her purse was one thing, and it was that book. Like, no eyeglasses, no medications, no anything, no wallet, just that book. It was, you know, and I'm glad that somehow it reached her before she passed on. But anyways, okay, thank you for indulging me.
That's really touched me. She must have been so proud of you.
Yeah, she was. We had a good relationship where, you know, I would write things. Even that first poem, The Road, she made paintings, you know, and called them The Road or called them Inspired by the Road. You know, we always had a very good back and forth with our creativity. So,
Oh, lovely.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. So can I ask you about what your writing process is then? How does it work for you?
I it's pretty simple. I
Right.
just write anywhere, anytime, in any condition, on any surface, with any implement. I mean, just get it down, you know. Especially if the feeling is there, just get it down. And as far as more structured writing, I do try to sit and, you know, dedicate a couple hours. It seems like that's it though. Like I once I've written for a couple hours, it seems to be done, maybe 3, you know, and I'm spent and I need to go recharge or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had other endeavors where, like painting, you can get lost, and next thing you know, it's dark and it's 10 hours later. But writing seems to do me in after hours, strangely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what did you mean when you said about the feeling?
The feeling of,
You said about because you talked about writing anywhere, on any surface, and if the feelings got you.
oh, sure. Um, yeah, sometimes I just, you know, I am especially happy when I have a sentence or some words and a feeling and a sort of an image of the scene I want to write, you know, or the story I want to write.
Mhm.
You know, that's when it's really easy to write. You just know you have to do it, and you sit down and you do it. So yeah, it's an overwhelming feeling that comes up, and it's like, okay, it's time to write. And I can be at work, I can be anywhere on the train, and just get it down any way I can, you know. So
Mm.
yeah.
So is it always a good feeling, or do you have, like, are there times when it's a real struggle, or do you just not bother
Yeah.
if it feels that way?
I get writer's block once in a while.
Hmm.
Um, I would say there's, you know, I've gotten through the classic writer's doubts and, you know, insecurities, and is my voice, does my voice have a place in the world, kind of thing. I've gotten through all that. It's like I do it mostly for my own enjoyment, and if others get some value out of it, that's just bonus, you know.
Hmm.
So
So
yeah.
how did you manage to put those kind of doubts and thoughts aside? How did you? Is that something that happened a long time ago, or is it?
It yeah, it feels like I've been in a better headspace for at least 10 years. I mean, and I don't know, maybe it's just the progression of a writer, you know, becoming an adult.
Mhm.
You're like, okay, like if I'm going to doubt writing and my abilities, then how do I have a chance? How is anybody going to say, oh, you may not have any faith in your writing, but we do? No one's going to do that. You got to kind of grow as a writer and just know that you have something special there, and do it every day, you know, and
Yeah,
make it honest. So yeah.
yeah, I really like that about knowing that you've got something to say. Like that's, I think most of the people that I talk to, like it's kind of like they know that they've got something to say, but they still have some of the doubts as to whether anybody, like who's interested in anything I might want to say, kind of thing. But
Right, but aren't, you know, if I don't know, I think, you know, aren't we always able to engage people in conversation? I mean, you know, unless you have really intense social phobias, I mean, you can engage people in conversation, and you can do it also with your words. You know, if it's that conversational and that true, I think it's really quite easy.
Yeah.
So,
I love the way that you put that. I never thought about it in that way before. Like, you can have a conversation in which you say something, you don't even think about it, do you really? And it's
pretty
the,
much, yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing,
That's
the thing going on the page.
I hope so. You know, I don't. I really try to aspire to that. I think when we're young writers, maybe we try to impress
Mm,
and be really in a sort of artificial way.
yeah,
But now I just want to have a conversation, and I want, you know, to be as true to the word as I can, you know. And I think that really, that's what readers want, I think, for the most part. So yeah.
lovely. So what would you say is different about writing screenplays compared to other types of writing? So you've written part of a novel, you've written poetry, and you've written screenplays.
Right. Screenplays are blueprints for movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have, and I want to still be writerly, I guess, about writing a screenplay,
Mm-hmm.
but it's got to be extremely readable. It's got to be, you know, not too verbose. And anybody who potentially wants to make your screenplay into a movie has to be engaged in the first few pages, and has to not be bogged down by too much, you know, language. So it's very different. It's less creative, pretty much, to write a screenplay, but you know, it's kind of nice to write one and visualize it and see where you can go with it. But
Mm-hmm.
you
So
know,
am I right in thinking that a screenplay is like the script for a movie? Or
right?
is it something different to that? I mean,
No, that's exactly.
honestly and
That's,
truly, I have no clue really what a screenplay would look like.
it looks like a script. If you've ever seen a script, it's, you know, it has paragraphs of description of action,
Mm-hmm.
and then has the characters, and under that their dialogue back and forth, and you know, headings that tell you, you know, where you are and what time of day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very structured, and you know, not free flowing. So, but it's fun to do. I mean, it's just for somebody who just likes to kind of write free verse, it's much more research and structured, and there's a technique to it, and there's a program to use, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's different for sure.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have any, there's no aids to us
No.
when we're writing poetry or prose. I mean, it's just pen and paper, and so it's different with doing a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So do you always write with pen and paper, or do you go onto laptop first?
Anything available. It's yeah, pen and paper, pencil and bar napkin, yeah, writing program, on the laptop and on the phone, in a notes or pages kind of thing on the phone, and you know, wherever I can get it saved, you know. But I do still like to write, you know, scribble on, you know, scrap paper.
Yeah.
It's really a really old bad habit of mine, but it feels right, you know.
So what do you do with all of them? Because I tend to write in journals. Like I've got piles of journals everywhere.
Yeah, I have some journals, and sometimes I, cut and paste or tape, my scribblings on bar napkins into the journals, and
Oh yeah.
scrap paper, and but that way I try to keep it organized, because piles. For years I just had piles and piles of scratch paper, and it was like, where's that one poem? I don't know.
That one poem that you remembered that you wrote a while back, and you suddenly realised it was a lot better than it was when you wrote it.
Yeah, that one. Sure.
So what about editing? Because you said about editing, you might be editing for the next 10 years, but what's your editing process like? Say something about that.
My books of poetry, I worked with an editor named Bambi, and we, I would do it. I probably did 4 or 5 editing passes on my books of poetry before I handed it off to her, and then we did about 10 together, at least. And that's that. You just go through the whole book and keep refining, and it's really a significant part of getting a book done is really pulling it together.
Would you say something more about that? Because I know quite a few of the people that I'm working with who are really brand new to writing, the editing is like, when I first start talking to them about editing, like you can see the horror on their faces. Like, oh my God, do I have to? Can you say something about the editing process?
Yeah, I believe me, I feel like, the initial words that come out of me are gold, but even so, they usually get edited 15 or 20 times. It's just really an important part of it. You can't just think that, your initial everything is perfect. You should keep going over it. I mean, and my screenplay, I'll probably edit that thing 20 times, and when and if I sell it, they'll probably change it 20 times. I mean, it's just, it may seem perfect to your eyes, but it's good to get a second or third set of eyes to look it over and see how it reads for them. And anytime I go back and look at something, I always see changes. Like, it's, you think it's exactly what you want when you first write it, but then when you go back, you're like, oh no, that's a little much there, and I can trim that out. And I was kind of a little thrifty with that sentence. Just, it always, when you go over it again, you usually get some more ideas. So
I remember with my first book, like I edited that God knows how many times. I mean, I didn't really know much about the publishing world in those days, and the publishing house that I was lucky enough to secure a contract with, they didn't give me much feedback at all, to be honest. But I had the sense to ask people to look at my work before it went in, and I thought I'd edited it, and I know some of the chapters had 14 edits, and even now I can go back to that book, and there's sentences in there where I've thought, that's not what I meant to say. But
right.
It's like, yeah, even now I mean, if I was writing that book again, it would be entirely different now, because I've learned so much.
Right. Yeah, don't you, I look back at stuff that I wrote 25 years ago, and I'm a little bit horrified, honestly. It's so different than how I write now. So yeah, we definitely grow as writers, and maybe shed a certain amount of skin along the way,
Yeah. Okay. So you said you've got your poetry books published. Can you say a little bit about how you got them published?
Yeah, I just decided, one, that I wanted to publish them. And there's a downtown LA publisher named Bam Baz.
I wondered if that's who you were going to say.
Yeah, do you know them?
I know them via Jules.
Right. So they're pretty good. They're, you know, they publish a lot of authors, and so they were very helpful. That's Bambi helps with the editing, and that helps with the cover layout and artwork. And you know, I took a couple photos for each of my books, and he laid them out, and it was quite easy, you know.
So how did you get the deal with the publisher in the first place? Because I know that can be really difficult for people to get publishing deals.
How to do it? Yeah, just, you know, honestly, I think they knew me especially Bambi knew me as a writer and a performer, and I came to know that they helped publishers get published, and you know, I inquired with her, and she liked, you know, read some of my samples and liked them, and we got the ball rolling. So yeah.
Brilliant. And how long ago is it since you published those books?
I think the last one was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, it was 3 years. So I think my books were published in 15 and 18.
Yeah.
As I recall. Yeah.
We'll definitely have to put the link on, because I want to get them now as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we'll do.
So can I ask you one last question, in case, unless anything else crops into my mind, but
Sure.
Is there one tip that you would give? I'm sure there's more than one tip, but is there one tip that you would give to people who are aspiring writers who might be listening?
Sure. I think just have faith and enjoy it and write every day. This is not one tip, but especially write every day. Like, I think if you don't, you know, are you really a writer? Like, if you just kind of dabble, then you're kind of a hobbyist. But if you're compelled to at least write every day, even if it's just one sentence, you know, I think you'll get there, and the words get easier and better every time you write. Yeah, that's my advice.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
And make it as true as possible.
Yeah.
As true to you as possible, even if it hurts. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to get to really the deep truth of it, rather than just the surface of it.
I would say, yeah. Really dig down. You know, it doesn't have to be all, you know, the pain of your upbringing or anything, but you know, kind of dig a little further than the surface is right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think especially early doors, I think it's a bit scary, isn't it, doing that? But I think a reader can tell, can't they? If you've not dug deep and you've not put yourself on the page, I think it's like the reader can't connect with it, can they?
Yeah, they'll probably lose interest. I mean, like, something that's just really predictable and only touches the surface. I mean, that's easy to be distracted from. But if it's really compelling writing and really grabs you, and you're wondering, wow, like, what's going to happen next? That's hard to look away from. So.
All right. Is there anything that you've not talked about that you think would be interesting for us to just finish off with, or not?
I think we hit all your questions, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me see. I did write a couple notes, and I didn't go to them at all. Yeah. Oh, the first thing I self-published a chapbook.
Oh, yes.
And I really think that's a great way to start.
Yeah.
You know, through arts and crafts, you essentially publish your own book, and you get an idea of what it takes to make a book. I mean, so I think it's a good gateway into self-publishing, and then you can go for, and it's something you can hand out and have fun with,
Yes.
and go from there. Yeah.
Now, I know that some of the people that I work with will not have a clue what a chapbook is. So would you just...
Yeah. Boy, I think I only did one, but you go through somewhat of a program. You type up your poems or whatever it is, and you lay out set page numbers, and you make basically a rudimentary book on, paper stock.
Yeah.
Maybe a little card stock for the cover, and then a lighter stock for the innards, and there you have a book. And you maybe put a little something on the... Do you have one?
I do. So, but I never published this. I did this for my own benefit, because I'm pretty sure you know about Jack Grape's method writing, don't you?
Yeah. Sure. He's great.
So this was my first chapbook after I've started the Jack Grape's method writing. So it's just a little thing. I got somebody to design and put some little...
Sure. Yeah, that
really
was good.
But I never did publish it. But it's just for myself.
Well, what I mean as publishing is just making it. You're self-publishing.
Yes.
And if you want to do 20 of them and distribute them to some sort of grassroots bookstore, that's cool too.
Yeah,
I
got 20 printed, but I just gave them to a load of people that I know as kind of gifts.
Yeah, that's about it, right?
Yeah, but there is something, I know you're right, there is something about putting your work into something like this, isn't there?
I thought it was a cool little exercise.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine like laying out a real book. Like, it's a real technique to make a book with a spine and and the page numbering and everything.
Yeah, I did that with my daily yarns, because this is the book that I published
nice.
earlier this year. I wrote this in the pandemic and self-published it, and getting the pages like I use Scrivener. I don't know if do you know Scrivener? Right.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, but still getting all the pages and everything right, it was like hours and hours and hours of it.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can trip up on. I mean, yeah, I was happy to let somebody else do that eventually. Yeah, it was tricky for me for some reason.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be tricky for a lot of people. I just did it by trial and error. So, but
yeah,
I enjoyed the process as well, though. It was a fun thing to do as well. So, if I didn't enjoy it, I would not have carried on doing it. So,
yeah.
Well, that's been really brilliant. Thank you so much, Johnny. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ria.
Lovely.
I'll send you some links.
Yeah, please do that. All right.
Cool. All the best.
Thank you.